this congregation, and you all know Harry, and he took care of the organ council. He and I had very special good friends in Edgerton, and he worked with my Dr. GP, Dr. Thomas Shearer, saint of medical practice, right, Harry? He and his brother, just fantastic. I know it's unusual at this point in the service that the pastor's going to get up and talk, but I've been feeling very comfortable as your pastor, Jolynn, has communicated with me, and even more comfortable coming among you. You are a very effervescent, welcoming congregation, and you are just wonderful the way you take a stranger who comes among you and helps him understand sharing worship with you. And this morning, I follow my practice, which comes out of my educational background, that I have message notes, as I think I did the first time. My good friend Peter is with me from St. Francis, Wisconsin, and he's going to help me give you all the message notes, and I'm going to do them on this side. And the whole idea is, as a professor in the UW system, I learned it was best to have some message notes. Bells often would ring before I was ready. So then I could say to the students, good luck, be sure you follow and study these. And the whole idea with the message notes for me is it means that I hope you will continue to consider the message of this Lord's Day. And the message today is based on the episode that is reported in the Gospel, and I want to make sure you understand the context, because this is a trick question. It was planned, and it was planned to be able to corner this guy, this bumpkin from out in nowhere, like Nazareth or Dodgeville or some place not of learning. And they figured they could take care of it on this one. So, as the gospel writer records it, the Pharisees, you know who they were, the most legalistic, the one, by the way, Paul was the chief among Pharisees, he said. They got together and they planned how they could trick Jesus into saying something wrong. They sent some of their followers, some of King Herod's followers, to say to him, "Teacher, we know you are honest. You teach the truth about what God wants people to do. And you treat everyone with the same respect, no matter who they are. Tell us what you think. Should we pay taxes to the emperor or not?" Jesus knew their evil thoughts, and he said, "Why are you trying to test me, you show-offs? Let me see one of the coins used for the paying taxes." They brought him a silver coin, and he asked, "Whose picture and name are on it?" "The emperor's," they answered. Then Jesus told them, "Give the emperor what belongs to him, and give God what belongs to God. His answer surprised them so much they walked away. Can you imagine the walking away in a huff? Damn. That question is as relevant today as it was when it was asked of Jesus. And if I ask you that in the public market, depending how you answer, you could get in trouble, couldn't you? Now, let's be sure we understand. Jesus answered this question not with any rule. He answered it with a principle. That's the way Jesus taught. Jesus did not teach rules. He taught principles. And that's why they are as relevant this morning as they were when he stated them, when he spoke them. They are relevant because we need to think about what it means to be followers of the way, followers of Jesus, later at Antioch called Christians, and citizens of the United States of America. Now, my own ministry has had a special interest in the dynamics of faith and citizenship. I am ordained United Church of Christ. I am also a political science teacher professor who has taught at Parker High School in Janesville and in the UW system. In both of my professions, pastor, professor, I focused on democracy, civics education through the social values of our Christian faith and the political values of our American citizenship. I cite the statement by Thomas Jefferson here that actually there is no safe depository of ultimate powers of the society but in the people themselves, and if we don't think they're enlightened enough that they should have that discretion, the remedy is not to take it away from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is the true corrective of abuses of constitutional power. That is as relevant today as when Thomas Jefferson wrote it in 1820. I invite you to consider with me the dynamic of our Christian faith and our citizenship. And I invite you to go ahead and turn over to the back of the page because it's duplicated. I guess I would like to claim it's duplicated for emphasis, but I have to confess it's just a mistake. Okay, now, one of the things we have to deal with is this Apostle Paul, who wrote 13 letters, which are very significant in our Christian faith. And in Galatians, he makes a declaration that is profound and actually extremely shocking when he wrote them, and even this morning. Listen to this and see what would happen if we went out on the street corner and started saying this, putting it in context. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male or female. For all of you are one in Christ Jesus. Obliterating, literally obliterating the issues of ethnicity, of race, economic barriers, and sexual orientation. That is a strong statement. But then Thomas Jefferson comes along, and in 1776, he's drafting the Declaration of Independence. He's working with the committee, and he proceeds to declare, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men, all persons, are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Extremely significant parallel. So that leaves you and me with the question of the principles, the dynamics of our Christian faith and our American citizenship. How do we plug in these assertions of the equality of humankind? How do you explain? How do you deal with persons who claim the identity Christian but deny equality of humankind? How do you? We know the realities of prejudice and discrimination in our churches and in our American culture and politics. The rubber really meets the road when we plug it into significant public policy and teaching American government and politics in one way or another through the decades. I have always taught and required all of my students to understand public policy in the full spectrum. And I've given you an example here of what we call the one-dimensional, which is the typical one that gets talked about, left, right, moderate, and that rather simplified kind of thing. I much prefer the multiple dimensional. And there's an example here, and jumping down, I encourage you to take a look at Ideologue, and I've given you the link. This is a wonderful example of the way that you can take any issue, you can respond to the survey, and it'll end up putting you on the graph. Now, we don't have a class. If I were regularly your pastor, I'd set up the Plymouth Church class. And we could all plug in so that when you got done, you would see where we, the class, are. Where are we as a congregation? And if Pastor Jolyn or one of you wants to do that, I'll help you set it up. I've used it for years with this great textbook, The Challenge of Democracy. What you will get is, when it comes up, you'll get an American flag. And that'll tell you where the Americans who have responded to the survey stand on the graph. This is much more, I think, helpful than the single one-dimensional. But what I want to plug it into right now, I would assert that one of the key significant public policy issues we have is health care in the United States. It's certainly the front page of every newspaper and every broadcast, telecast I've seen for weeks. And it certainly impacts every single one of us. And I think we as Christians need to think seriously about what does it mean. The scripture scriptures are robust with all kinds of principles as to how we are to deal with this kind of a human need, basic human need. This current public issue needs us, Christian citizens, to evaluate and then to identify ourselves and talk about it. I was a lobbyist for the school district of Janesville for 8 years and registered as Wisconsin law requires, and so I got some great real experience of lobbying, advocating public policy. And in our state in Madison, we have a very strong lobbyist law, by the way. It's really great. But it is very easy to communicate with our representatives. They're local. You probably know your own assembly representative here from Dodgeville. You can call on the phone. You probably won't get the number unless you ask them to call you back. And I'll be surprised if they don't call you back. You can send them an email. It's on the internet for citizens. You can send them a letter and it'll get delivered. I can attest to that. And of course, the best thing is you can meet them in the street or at the grocery store or wherever, and you can say, "Good morning, I want to talk to you." Now, if they don't have time, you need to remind them, "Look, I hired you." They want you to like them. Now, that's the state level. The federal is far more difficult. And at the federal level, the only thing I can say is you can send an email. You'll find the system is set up so that only zip codes in the district of the member will be sent. You cannot write to any other member of the House. You cannot send mail unless you want to wait for a decade for it to be delivered, because you all, I think all of you look mature enough that you can remember the episode we had with the anthrax that shut down mail to the Capitol. Now it goes through a whole separate screaming secret post office. And maybe someday it gets to the congressman. I actually haven't sent mail for a long time. Email tends to get through. Telephone, the clerk will tally, yes, yes, no, no, yes, yes, no, no, you know. That's all the congressman will get. But again, if you see them in person, if you can catch them, this is one of the fun parts right now. In Wisconsin, we have members of Congress who don't want to meet those of us who employ them. And they are avoiding us, which serious ethical issue, I would argue. But anyway, you need to communicate, and not only to communicate with the members, representatives, but with one another. We need to be in civil communication, to listen, to understand. And I love that wonderful quote from Gracie Allen. You all knew George and Gracie, right? And you look mature enough. You didn't?
Not me.
Oh, boy, you are a youngster. I'm old enough. You know what George said when he passed 100? Anybody 100 here? Almost. My mother was 102 when she died last August. He said, "Hey, I made it! Very few people die after 100. That's one way to look at it. But Gracie, writing to George, said, "Do not put a period where God has put a karma. I can begin with the history of the periods that humankind has put along the way, only to have God go, I put a comma there, you keep your eyes open, I'm still speaking. Whether it be astronomy, remember when humankind said the earth goes around the sun, God made it that way? You know what God said? To hell with you. Earth goes around the sun. Right? Live and learn. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of those. So God is still speaking, thank God. So let me underline, what do you believe? What are the principles? You need to talk the talk, but that's so easy, and there's so many leaders that talk. It's walk the talk. That's the really hard part. May God guide, help, encourage, and bless us as we wrestle with our Christian faith and as we plug it in to our lives as citizens of the United States and of the world. Now we have the good fortune that Tom is here. You've already enjoyed his playing the flute. What a fantastic way to accompany him. I love it, especially with the tune Finlandia. Woo! I love that one. Anyway, he is the one who's choosing the congregational hymn now after the message, and I look forward to singing. Thank you, Tom.